Welcome, beautiful royals, to Royalty Declared. I am your host, Samra Levi. And if you're new to this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. And today I have this amazing woman here. She's an independent journalism, somebody who I'm really inspired by everything she's been doing. Please help me welcome Monique Mackay. Welcome, darling.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So honored.
I'm so happy you're here. You know what? You are phenomenal, and for those who don't know Monique, she does not even have a background in journalism, but this woman, she has over 60K followers. She just, started this whole movement during the pandemic. And, tell us your story. Tell us how it all started. It started about a couple of years ago when your daughters moved to Australia, right?
Yeah, that's right. My daughters were 12 and 14 years old and teenage girls, and wanted to go live with their dad, who resides in Australia. And that was in the very early stages of the pandemic. So it was April of 2020. And it was about a week after the girls left that Australia shut down their international borders. They shut down their borders between their states within their own country. And it was one of I would say it was the darkest time in my life. It was very scary.
And you ended up visiting them.
I did, yes.
Tell us what happened when you went there.
So there were no flights because they shut down their international borders. And in order for you to enter Australia, you required an exemption. So I was very fortunate, and I know there are many out there who were kept from their loved ones for years, were not granted the exemption. I was granted the exemption, and I finally got out to Australia 8 months. So it had been 8 agonizing months, not knowing if and when I would see the girls again, because, just the uncertainty in the world and what was going on. And when I got to Australia, I was required to go through bioscreening. I was put onto a bus, taken to an undisclosed location where I was kept in an Australian quarantine facility for 2 weeks. And I've had to do that twice to see my children.
That is crazy. Like, it's like, is this really happening here? Like, what was that experience for you when you were there for those 2 weeks? Were you like stuck in your own room? Were you allowed to talk to other, like?
So the first time, yes. The first time I did my quarantine in Queensland, and we were granted fresh air breaks. So I did get to go outside. The second time I did it in July of 2021, I was in a Sydney quarantine facility, and that was challenging because we were not let out of the room. We were tested multiple times, and there was no access to fresh air. So we didn't even have a window that would open. It was really challenging.
That's crazy. But then something ignited within you. You looked around at everything that was happening, and you just felt like just something wasn't right here. Tell us what that was.
Well, the situation that I was in with my children is what I felt was not right. And I started to just speak from my heart and tell my story and ask people to look at this, and see for a virus that they say, or that had such an incredibly high survival rate. I thought, what are we doing to people? What are we doing to people? And that's where I kind of started speaking. And it was it was after I came back from Australia the first time in December of 2020, where I really started to take action. And, over the course of that time I was away from my children, I did a lot of research. As a mother separated from her children with the uncertainty of the world, I wanted to know for myself what was going on. And try to make sense of it and understand it. And it didn't make sense. And when it doesn't make sense, it's not true, right? And that's where I was like, okay, when I returned from Australia, I just felt compelled to get in my car, and I drove across southern Ontario to film all the field hospitals. So those were the makeshift hospitals that were outside of hospitals, and what they claimed they were for was to house, patients if the hospitals were overwhelmed. So if there was an, influx of COVID patients, they would stay in these military-style hospitals. And what I came to find was that not one of these hospitals had ever been utilized, not one. And I started sharing this out on social media, and that's where it really skyrocketed.
Wow. And it was crazy because of the news everywhere, they're acting like the hospitals were full of people, and it was all lies. The media, it just lied so much about this whole pandemic.
They did. And so how it escalated was nurses would reach out. So it really started with the nurses, and thank God, for them, because of them reaching out and sharing their stories. They would say, come to my hospital in Barrie, come to my hospital in Kingston, come to Ottawa, film our field hospital. And they would say our hospitals are not overwhelmed. They had patients in the ICU that had vital, perfect vitals. They were on oxygen, but, were in the ICU, and they were like, never in history had we had these types of people who were not dying essentially in the ICU. They were saying that their hospitals, so diagnostics was shut down, X-ray was shut down, day surgery was shut down. The hospitals were empty, and I did film a few of the hospitals inside. Unfortunately, I did receive some trespassing notices, and I just filmed empty emergency rooms. I remember being at the Guelph General, and it was dead empty, right? And I just, couldn't believe it. And that's when nurses really started to reach out and say, please keep me anonymous. I'd like to share my story. So I would snapshot their stories and I would share them anonymously. And then I started to have nurses wanting to speak, again, anonymously. So we would do just anonymous interviews without showing their faces. I've spoken to nurses out in the United Kingdom, out in the United States, and across Canada. So really all over the world, nurses were wanting to speak out.
And was it a similar thing across?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was all similar. They were all very afraid to speak due to, being reprimanded, being written up. Also just the bullying and the environment with their colleagues, One nurse had, out of Kitchener, we did an interview, and she had said that if they were told that if they were walking outside without a mask and someone took a picture and it came back, that they could be written up. They had to abide by the policies and essentially be an example in public. So they were telling them what to do even outside of the hospital.
During this whole investigation that you're doing for the past 2 years, right? What would you say was the most shocking thing to you to discover?
Oh dear, there's been so much. I would have to say what really did shock me was how terrified nurses, doctors, scientists were afraid to speak and were being silenced. I think that's the most shocking thing is, why are these people being silenced? Because they are not disagreeing, because they are disagreeing with the current narrative, or they're seeing discrepancies. Why is it that, only some can speak when it's, COVID related and it fits the narrative, but if you have an opposing view, you're completely silenced, canceled, fired, slandered in the media as spreading misinformation. It's shocking. It's shocking what they're doing to these people.
Yeah. Let the viewers know what you think this whole pandemic was about. I mean, you and I have talked about this, but
yeah. Well, how much time do we have? No, so I'm going to say 3 things. I believe that this is about global enslavement, depopulation, and attack on the human consciousness.
And it's all leading to the Antichrist agendas.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is exactly where when you asked me about how I found faith.
Yes, that's actually one of my favorite. Like, I love that. Because, see, sometimes, because you didn't have a strong faith in the Lord before this journey, right? And a lot of times people need to meet the devil first before they start believing in God. And you saw so much evil within the last 2 years that was happening, which brought you closer to the Lord. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, that is what did it for me. There was so much evil. There was so much corruption. There was so much, secrecy. There was so much pain. And I just thought everything that is occurring in this world is antichrist. And if it's antichrist, there's got to be Christ. And just the strangest things started happening to me when I started to believe and pray. Every time, so I have a cross that hangs in my car, and every time I would get out of my car to go film hospitals or field hospitals, I would just hold the cross and I would say, God, please just guide me. Give me what I need. Give me the information that I need to get out there. And it's every single time I would catch a nurse, just the right one on that break, and say, is your hospital overwhelmed? And she would say, no, we're not at all, So.
Yes, amen to that. God works in such mysterious ways, and I just love how he chose you to be the voice and gave you the bravery, the courage during the time where people were just living in fear. And, for me, I am just so shocked and in awe how blind people have been through this, pandemic. It's like whatever they were told by the media, by their government, they just went with it, especially Christians.
I know.
I'm like, don't you read the Bible? Don't you see what's happening? We need to be aware. The Bible says, due to lack of knowledge, my people will perish.
Yeah.
Like information, knowledge is power. And right now, we don't even have excuse. There's so much information on social media, on the internet.
And that's why I say that this is an attack on human consciousness, because when they start telling you what to do, how to think, what to put in your body, it's removing your free will. It's removing your ability. They are continuously saying, COVID is dangerous. The fear. They're just, putting so much fear into people.
Yeah, because fear is control, right? You release fear, and then you can control the people, and then they will tell you, this is the problem. When we have a solution here, the solution is the jab.
Exactly.
However, the jab ends up killing a lot of people as well, and it's not good.
Yes. And that's another path this has taken me on. So my platform, I believe, has been a place where people, for whatever reason, well, with God, I believe, people trusted me. Mm-hmm. They trusted me with their stories. They were afraid, and they came to me with their stories. They wanted to speak. So my platform was really to give people a voice when they had none, and they were being silenced and being told not to speak. And this path has led me down a different path where I now interview many of the vaccine injured. So I've had the honor to interview, people like Dan Hartman, whose son, 17 years old, died shortly after the Pfizer vaccine. I've interviewed a woman who, right after her vaccine, gave birth to her 38-week-old daughter, Brooklyn, stillborn angel. Young men with myocarditis, pericarditis, women with neurological disorders, tremors. A fellow out in the States, same thing, neurological disorder, tremors. And it's heartbreaking because these people all did what they believed what was ethically right to help people, and they were lied to and deceived, and they are hurting, and they are being gaslit. They are told they have anxiety. They are being told it's everything but the vaccine. They're just being told it's everything but that, and they cry to me and say, we just want to be heard. We just want help. We just want to have a voice. And, they're so grateful that there are people out there that are willing to listen and to willing to help. And that's another thing that just boggles my mind is I feel like, where is our humanity? Where is our compassion? Where has our empathy gone? We told people to do the right thing. They stepped up to the plate. They were believed that, and they were duped into believing they were doing the right thing. They felt in their hearts that they were, because of this propaganda, manipulation, this mass formation, and they are injured. Some have perished. And we are now calling them anti-vaxxers. They were never against us. They were they did it. Yeah. And now they're being ignored.
And you know what, too? Like, so many regulations were violated, against human rights. Like, to even ask us for a medical information, that's against the charts, right?
It's against. So what is happening is against the Nuremberg Code. The Nuremberg Code is the most recognized piece of law out there. And this came into effect after the Holocaust, when they were testing and experimenting on human beings. The first part of that is first, do no harm. And another part of that is that you must have the participants' full consent. They must be given full informed consent. We know today that has not occurred, and that's where an investigation needs to be done, because this is absolutely one of the biggest crimes against humanity. Pfizer had the adverse events in their possession. Pfizer also knew that their vaccine would not stop transmission of the virus. And the whole thing, the whole narrative was stop the spread, stay home, stop the spread, get vaccinated. And they had these adverse events in their possession. They were going to hold these to themselves, but because a judge ordered them to release them, they were forced to release them. And there are pages and pages of these adverse events: myocarditis, pericarditis, neurological diseases, cardiac issues, skin diseases, shingles, you name it, fertility issues as well. These vaccines were, the first time they were tested on human beings, for the COVID vaccine
was when they actually
was 2020. They had never been tested on human beings before. Wow. They were only tested on mice, essentially. Yeah. So they were forced to release these documents that they were going to hold for 75 years. It's just absolutely crazy that's happened, right? Yeah.
We see the Bible unfold before our eyes, and people still too blind to see. Bill Gates, a lot of these big elites have talked about numerous times depopulating the world, because when they're in the end, where there's one ruler, like right now, there's too many people to be controlled under one ruler. That's so right. They're releasing all kinds of things into the world to kill people off.
Yes. And so, yes, I asked people to search up 3 individuals: Klaus Schwab, Dennis Meadows, and Harari, okay? These people talk about depopulation. Klaus Schwab talks about centralized power, and he's part of the World Economic Forum. This man is no governing body. He's no leader, and yet he speaks as though he is. As well as, Dennis Meadows. So he's an American scientist, and he talks about this being, that we're essentially at the end. We're at a periodic die-off. And Harari says one of the scariest things. He said that in the Bible, there is no discussion or reference of when human beings become useless. These are his words: when human beings become useless. And that's where new religions and new ideologies have to come into play. So 3 very, in my personal opinion, evil human beings. And they have talked about it. They have talked about this publicly. They talk about, that the world, all the things that we have in the world can't be equally dispersed and enjoyed over 9 billion people, but over 1 billion people, then, and how do you plan to achieve that, right? So it's.
And they're not even hiding. They're really
They're not
out in
hiding.
the open. They're exposing themselves, but yet people just don't even acknowledge what these people are saying. And these are people of money
Yes.
and in power.
Yes.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And it's, we have been deemed anti-mask or anti-vax or conspiracy theorists, but this information, it's all available to people. They just have to take the time to go look for it. And you talked about knowledge. Knowledge is power. And people just accepted what they were being told. They trusted their government officials. They trusted the public health officials.
And the media.
And the media.
Yeah.
The media is
the biggest liar.
The media is the virus, in my opinion. I mean, there's many, but they're one of the biggest propagandists in the world. They are funded by our government. They are funded by the government. The government controls what is what people see. This happened in Venezuela. This happens in China, North Korea, and this is happening in our own country.
Yeah, and that's where I was really, I talked about this before. I was like, this is not right. You know what I mean? Live in a country like Canada. And, God has given us free will. Who are we to take that from each other?
Yes.
Right? And when you're forced, again, to cover your face and in the spiritual realm, for me, that's really just to shut us up. That's what it represents, to shut us up, right? And that whole mask thing is really, you don't need to be even that smart to know that thing doesn't even work or help.
Yeah.
If anything is worse for you.
Yeah, and I think it's also a constant reminder, of the fear that they're trying to propel, right? So, it's blasting, like, George Orwell's 1984. If you've read the book, it's incredible. But he wrote the book in 1948 and predicted what would happen in 1984. And they have basically propaganda 24/7 TVs in their homes. They can't shut it off. They cannot shut it off.
Gaslighting, man.
Yeah, so it is, constant fear, COVID. They don't want you to forget. And when you leave your home, well, how can you be reminded of it? You'll see all the people on the streets wearing those masks, and you'll have that reminder.
Yeah, this whole thing didn't make sense.
No.
None of it.
No, and masks, they don't work.
No,
they don't work. And if you were, you'd have to cover your hands. That's really where you pick up most things, right? They don't work. They don't work. You can't tell me, to those people who've been wearing the mask, and I'm saying this, and from a place to just a question, and make you think. Over the last 2.5 years of you wearing a mask, have you gotten sick? Have you gotten sick? And those who have worn it, yes, they've gotten sick. Those who are vaccinated, 1, 2, 3, 4, they have gotten sick. This is not stopping the spread. It's not stopping transmission.
I know people personally, myself, quite a few of them who did get the vaccine and they still got the virus. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's
Oh yeah, so many people in my life. My whole family was sick with COVID in Mexico, and they're all, majority of them are vaccinated. And
and it was such a division. That
Yeah.
was another thing, right? Such division. There was literally hate
Yes.
amongst the ones, who are for, the ones against it. And I'm sitting here, I'm just like watching. That's the same thing they do before elections in the States, the racism thing against black and white. It's the same type of tactics they use. And people keep falling for it.
Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. And
That's exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. It's just another label, right? You've got black, white, the gender. Now it's vaccinated against the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. And it's just a further way to divide us. But we have to realize that we are all the same at this point. You can contract and spread the virus if you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated. And that is their goal is to really divide and conquer, because once you can, people united with hope and love are their biggest enemy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hope is their biggest enemy, right?
Yeah, there's power in uniting. And I just encourage everyone, please do your own research. This is just a start. This is just the foreshadowing of what's to come. And if you're ready right now, following and falling for all the lies and the false narratives of the media, what will happen later on down the road? You're done for. It's our responsibility to seek the information we need for ourselves, for our children, for our nation, for the world. Yes,
and most importantly, for our children.
Absolutely.
Our children are the future. They are the most vulnerable, precious human beings on this planet.
Yes.
And they are innocent, and we need to protect them because they are attacking. Just think of what they've done to our children over the last 2 years, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, developmentally. There are children, I've spoken to several teachers, and they say because of, them being away from school and being isolated, they, these 4-year-olds have the minds of 2-year-olds.
Well, they want to plant those seeds at a very young age and mess up our kids.
Just think about this, everyone. I need you to think about this. As a child, these children have been told to believe that they are carriers of disease and that they can harm or essentially kill mom, dad, brother, sister, grandmother, grandfather. That is psychologically in their heart, in their brain, in their hearts. It is abuse. And it is not the children's job to protect the adults. It is not the children's job to protect the family. It is the parents and the mothers and the fathers' job to protect the children. And, it really is the exact opposite, that children have such beautifully crafted immune systems that they can fight off infection better than any adult or any senior.
And you know what, Sue? We have a great creator.
Yes.
Okay? We have a great creator. And a lot of times, we have everything within us that could fight off a lot of these viruses. And actually what we put in, that just weakens our immune system.
That's right? But children are the most resilient. They are the most resilient. And that is why you see there are no real, children have not died of COVID. They have not died of COVID. The influenza is more harmful in children than COVID. And, I'll invite you to look at Dr. Martha Fulford from McMaster in Hamilton. She's been an advocate for the children, and she talks about this. So parents can go look at what she's been saying about the children and COVID, and many other doctors like Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Shoemaker, Dr. Paul Alexander. But these children are actually the key to save us. It's actually that beautiful and that divine because their immune systems are so perfectly crafted and strong and resilient that they will create herd immunity. So what they've been going through, what they've gone through psychologically, been in isolation, had to mask their faces for 8 hours a day, couldn't play with their best friends. Their playgrounds were covered up by caution tape. They were told that they couldn't go see grandma.
Like I said, they want to start that really early on so they're used to it when they grow up. But we need to stand up against all of that. And talking about children and mothers, tell them about the event that's coming up.
Yes. So I put a call out to my followers on my platform, and I have just such amazing people out there that are just willing to take a stand for the children. And that's what I said. I said, to those women, mothers, grandmothers, daughters that are willing to take a stand for our children that reside in the GTA or are willing to drive to the GTA December 4th, please email me. We need to tell our children that we did not stay silent. We need to show them this. And never again is now. Never again is now.
Amen.
So
I'll put all your information on my YouTube channel. So
and we will have the flyer coming out. And
I'll be there. And you know what? Thank you. The time is up, but You will come on again. You and I are, we're in partnership. We're going to work together and stand up for our rights. And I
Yes.
encourage you all to do that as well. So thank you so much, Monique.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
greatly
so much.
appreciated I just love your bravery, man, and your courage and your boldness. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope you're blessed by the show. And for those who do not know Jesus, I encourage you to seek him and accept him as your Lord and Savior. And please do your own research regarding everything. Okay, don't just believe things that the media tells you. It's your responsibility to do your research to find out the truth. And so we will see you all in a couple of weeks. God bless you. Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you so much.